You may picture the samurai as warriors of loyalty and honor, bound by codes and duty. But history, as always, has sharper edges. The truth is that loyalty could vanish in a heartbeat, and honor was often a mask for ambition. Our story tonight begins with a shogun at a banquet. By dawn, his body would lie in silence, and Japan would be on the road to civil war. The shogun's name was Ashikaga Yoshinori. He ruled in the early 15th century, the sixth leader of the Ashikaga shogunate. His reign is not often remembered, overshadowed by later warlords like Oda Nobunaga or Tokugawa Ieyasu. Yet Yoshinori's death in 1441 left scars across Japan that shaped the centuries to come. The Ashikaga shogunate itself was fragile. Unlike the earlier Kamakura rulers, who commanded tighter military loyalty, the Ashikaga line struggled to keep its vassals in check. By Yoshinori's time, the emperor in Kyoto was a ceremonial figure. Real power lay in the shogun's hands, but holding that power required balancing dozens of powerful clans, each eager for land, status, and influence. Yoshinori's own story began unusually. He had once been a Buddhist monk. Removed from the violence of politics, he lived a life of ritual and study. But fate pulled him out of the monastery. When the previous shogun died without heirs, Yoshinori was selected to lead. Some thought his religious background would make him peaceful, perhaps even wise. Instead, he proved ruthless. He punished rivals harshly. He confiscated land from clans he distrusted. He raised taxes, even on those who had expected reward for loyalty. And worst of all, he had little patience for the pride of powerful samurai families. One of those families was the Akamatsu. For generations, the Akamatsu had served the Ashikaga. They had fought in wars and held estates in western Japan. Their leader in Yoshinori's time was Akamatsu Mitsusuke, a man who had every reason to expect respect at court. But Yoshinori denied him. Lands were stripped from the Akamatsu. Mitsusuke himself was insulted, humiliated before his peers. For a samurai lord, this was not just a slight. It was an injury to his very honor. And so, Mitsusuke began to plot. He invited Yoshinori to a grand banquet at his residence. The shogun, perhaps sensing nothing, accepted. After all, banquets were a common stage for politics. Food, music, dancers, and entertainment softened tensions and displayed wealth. Why not enjoy such a show? But that evening, the performance turned into a trap. In the midst of the feast, Mitsusuke's men struck. Yoshinori was surrounded, his guards overwhelmed. Within moments, the most powerful man in Japan lay dead on the banquet floor, wine mixed with blood. Music stopped mid-note. This event became known as the Kakitsu incident, after the era name in which it took place. Imagine the shock in Kyoto. A shogun had been murdered not on the battlefield, but in a hall of supposed friendship. Samurai could accept defeat in open war, but assassination at a feast, that was beyond dishonor. It was a wound to the very order of society. Mitsusuke tried to defend his actions. He declared Yoshinori a tyrant, claiming that removing him was a service to the realm. Perhaps he believed the great clans would rally behind him. Perhaps he thought they would see Yoshinori's cruelty as justification. But the gamble failed. Instead of rallying, the clans recoiled. The Ashikaga family named a new shogun almost immediately, Yoshinori's young son, Yoshikatsu, who was only 8 years old. Of course, a child could not truly rule, so regents and generals took control in his name. That very fact revealed the weakness of the system. The shogunate survived, but its authority was cracked. As for Mitsusuke, his moment of defiance ended quickly. Armies marched against him. His castles fell one by one. Within the year, his rebellion was crushed. Surrounded and facing defeat, he chose seppuku, ritual suicide, rather than surrender. His clan's lands were divided among rivals. The Akamatsu name faded into the shadows of history, but the consequences did not end with Mitsusuke's death. The assassination of Yoshinori set a precedent. It showed that a shogun's life could be ended by a single daring stroke. It revealed that the loyalty of samurai families was brittle, subject to ambition, resentment, and insult. And it weakened the aura of the Ashikaga shogunate itself. In the decades that followed, Japan slipped into deeper instability. Disputes among clans multiplied, factions fought in Kyoto, and eventually, these tensions exploded into the Onin War of 1467, a conflict so destructive that it leveled Kyoto and shattered central authority entirely. That war is often marked as the start of the Sengoku, or Warring States period, the age of near-constant civil war that lasted more than a century. So we can trace a straight line, from a banquet hall in 1441 to the burning of Kyoto, to the rise of Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu. One shogun's execution planted the seed of chaos. But let's pause for a moment and consider Yoshinori himself. The chronicles describe him as harsh, feared, even hated. Had he lived longer, might rebellion have come anyway? Could another clan have risen against him? Perhaps. Yet the method of his death made all the difference. A battlefield defeat might have strengthened the shogunate through the survival of its institutions. But assassination at a feast, treachery during hospitality, was harder to recover from. It left behind not just a vacancy of power, but a stain of dishonor. That stain lingered. For generations, the Kakitsu incident was remembered as both a warning and a precedent. Samurai lords knew that even the highest could fall, not with glory on the field, but with betrayal at the table. And that is what makes this story so haunting. Civil wars do not always begin with clashing armies and banners raised. Sometimes they begin with music in the air, with cups of sake raised high, with the scrape of steel pulled from scabbards when no one expects it. The execution of Ashikaga Yoshinori was terrifying not only for its brutality, but for what it revealed. Power, even at its height, is fragile. Trust can collapse in a single night. And sometimes, the spark that lights a century of war is struck not in open battle, but in the hushed, shocked silence of a banquet hall. That is the legacy of 1441, a shogun dead, a dynasty wounded, and Japan set on a path toward its age of endless war. Because in the end, even in a world of swords and honor, betrayal can be the sharpest weapon of all.